Hello, 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 travelers. We're here once again. Every year I think, oh, this will be a piece of cake, and every year, boy howdy, do I immediately prove myself wrong. Many movies this year. I've set records. I myself broke my record from last year, which I think was 174. Personally, old Movie Man, just movies in theaters, I managed to somehow see 214 movies in theaters this year between new releases, classics being given time on the silver screen again, art house cinema. After a full year, we're only going to be taking stock of the new releases. Admittedly, again, old Movie Man here, fallen behind in the last few months leading up to the holidays and this big move. Apologies for the setup. We're still working on the lighting, and it's a bit bare bones. The position of the camera is going to be different, and everything's going to be different and better in the 2025 series of reviews. But I'm going to try to catch up on reviews for this year, or last year rather. But first and foremost, we gotta say, because people say, well,
Movie Man, what was the best movie you saw last year? What were the good ones?
I'll tell you. But before I tell you, we gotta class it up a little bit. Par for the course, 3 for 3 years. We gotta hit you with that. What can I say? It's a bit of a tradition at this point. Before I even started going over the list and refreshing my memory of all the films I had seen from January 1st of 2024 all the way up until the tippy end, sure. Before I got to it, I thought, oh yeah, this will be an easy one, but alas, no. So far, this is my third year in a row doing a top 10 video for my channel in terms of films, and I'm not gonna lie, this has been the most difficult one yet to try to figure out. So we're doing things a little bit differently this year. You might call it cheating, I don't know. As always, I gotta preface by saying I'm very biased. This is my top 10, so I got my top 10. You might even hear some honorable mentions, and I have a new category I'll be debuting toward the end of this whole list as well. I'm going to restrict myself to 2 minutes to speak on each film as we go. MovieMan's top 10 movies of 2024.
Pupusas.
Yes.
And those nuns they killed in the 80s.
Number 10, yes, this is a film that pushed back and delayed because of the writer's strikes, and that it was going to be in 2023, ended up being pushed to 2024.
You probably slept on.
Problemista. I tell you what, I might be the only one of my friends that absolutely fell in love with this film. Quirky, unique, weird, beautiful story, the immigration process for the US and what the American dream is supposed to be versus what it ultimately ends up being. Characters that are more than you think under the surface, a la the ever supremely talented Tilda Swinton, and a genuinely hilarious script and performances. I love the creativity in this film, the direction. What more is there to say? I mean, yeah, Problemista is my number 10.
It's so simple, Alejandro. This is it. The sky's the limit.
Plus de 20 ans à travailler ensemble. Je faisais une recette et elle faisait des merveilles sous le feu.
I already am cheating. Guess what? We got a two-way tie for number 10. This one came out for me. It got released in my area at my local art house cinema in 2024. A simple foreign film, beautiful cinematography, human characters, a beautiful romantic story revolving around a guy and a gal in their twilight years and their love for food and the art of the culinary and the kitchen, and the way this film just kind of took you through that process, and I could watch these two make food in a kitchen for hours, and the way they communicate their feelings and the passion and the romance and even the levity or heartbreak, it all comes through with the food they make, and then as they present it, and this feeling when you're lost for words but you can communicate what you're trying to say through your art, if that makes any sense. In this case, the dishes they make and serve to each other, these little acts of service, and it culminates in this beautiful film about love, loss, and in this case the food and the passion that can bring us all together and help say things sometimes when we can't.
Cet instant, le meilleur moment de la journée.
Had no one else shared that with you? That's really weird. It's the thing. It's the promise.
Good thing these are less than 2 minutes each because I'm cheating. For the first time ever, three-way tie. But this last film, I could not in good conscience leave this off the list. A rule of thumb, I usually try not to review documentaries, but I like a good, well-made doc, and something about this as I went back over the list, it just stood out to me. This film literally emboldened me, impassioned me. I'm talking about Kim's Video. If you have not seen Kim's video and the journey this kid goes on and the lengths he goes to literally across borders, different countries in order to save this old stash, find the guy who used to be Kim at Kim's video, and how ultimately these films ended up, you know, recovered as much as they could be, safe and sound. I think it appeals to the cinephile in me, and just the fact that this guy got hyperfixated and then documented, thank God he documented his quest, and just the journey he goes on, and bless him for, like, I mean, he's very upfront about kind of how his personality is at the beginning. He can be obsessive, dramatic moments, there's funny moments. It's a crazy story, and it's all documented. And if you like and appreciate and love film, the good, the bad, the silly, and you like just being able to see art that other people neglect and wouldn't even have cared about, and all of this was arguably saved because of one man who had the nerve to do something about it, and got the help and the backing, and eventually was able to save this precious collection. And thank you for doing so, because yeah, that ended up being, I had to mention it.
Nobody rents videos anymore.
Three-way tie for my top 10 is Kim's video, Taste of Things, and then Problemista. And there are no more ties, I promise. You'll see in honorable mentions. There were literally probably a dozen or more films that I really like for one reason or another that I wanted to get on this list, but I had to cut myself off somewhere. So we move on. No more cheating, I promise.
Do you have it in you to make it epic?
While it may not be as high octane as its predecessor, Fury Road, I gotta say my number 9 is Furiosa, a Mad Max saga. To get more in the Mad Max universe, even if we only see a silhouetted Rockatansky from the back in one scene, that's fine, because between Anya Taylor-Joy, the smaller gal that played her as a youngin', and of course, Dementis, like, I don't know, it's zany, it's crazy, it's creative. As always, you know, this may not be George Miller's magnum opus, but as always, he shines behind the camera with his direction, creativity, a whole world, a wasteland of repurposed goods and weapons, and these people that are trying to survive, questions about morality and what it means to, like, live versus survive, and just, I loved it. It's a beautiful film to look at. It's super fun to watch, with action scenes straight out of a damn video game, I'd say. Very entertaining. Unfortunately, slept on upon release. I can only hope that as time goes on, it gets a bit more of a cult following, you know?
That wasn't hope, that was instinct.
Who is coming to you, my child?
I'm almost a little bit surprised it's not further up on the list. A lot of people love this movie as much as I do, but aren't gravitating towards it as much as I kind of thought they would. But I would say my number 8 for the year is, and this might be recency bias, but Nosferatu. I put Nosferatu up here. It was one of my more anticipated films of the year, and I normally wonder if that's me going in with like that bias of, oh, I'm going in wanting to like it, but I've definitely been disappointed before, and if this delivered exactly what I was thinking and hoping it would, and honestly then some. I've seen the OG 1923 Nosferatu several times, and for this to be a literal remake and adaptation, to me, I see it as a massive expansion of all the characters, the story beats, that just Vlad Dracula Tepesh, or I guess Vlad the Impaler, however you want to go over it. I love the aesthetic, as always, the natural lighting, the painstaking amount of authenticity going into character dialogue, dialect, accents, the killer cast, the visuals, the color palettes. I saw it at IMAX, which was my preferred format. Saw it on film, still good, but seeing this on the biggest screen you can and the highest resolution possible, in my opinion, through his whole filmography, Eggers can do no wrong. I can't wait to see the confirmed full director's cut. Will be coming out when the movie drops physically. That's my number 8, honestly.
Nosferatu.
15. Cash up front.
Deal.
After seeing it twice in theaters, it's almost kind of snuck up on me. It's been a slow burn. I didn't realize how much I would love this film, but the more I think on it, the more I let it marinate with me. I gotta say, Sean Baker's latest, Anora. I loved Anora, and when you talk about quality of a film versus, like, it's got a fairly simple plot to it, a little bit of subversion of expectations based on what the trailer showed. These performances, this film is so entertaining. Our theater, it was a madhouse in there. It was a riot. I'm not just liking this because I laughed so much, but Mikey is a true force in this film. You know, did all of her own stunts, as Sean Baker said in the opening we saw before the film. I did see this in 35mm, which honestly kind of added to the aesthetic of it all, but seeing it on a film print was great. This journey and how take an occupation like sex workers, performers like that, and how often society looks down upon, frowns upon, judges. Sean Baker always kind of has sex work in his films in some degree or another, but it's never in a light that's like exploitative, you know? It's just kind of showing you that side of reality. This is what our character does, and we're going to move forward from there. But the story, the characters, touche, if you know, you know. My boy is goated, a secondary protagonist. I loved it. It's funny. I got teared up a couple times. It's got a strong emotional core to it. A crazy, hectic, anxiety-filled ride through the streets of New York late at night. So do yourself a favor. Check it out.
Yeah, it's a butterfly.
You're so classy.
I know.
I got dollar signs like a real hoe.
2024 was a great year for horror. This just captured me in such a way. And I fell in love with Osgood Perkins' Long Legs, the same as a lot of other horror fans did. There's still some haters out there, and I get it. I even had some friends of mine that were expecting it to be more intense, more scary, more satanic, etc., etc. I admit, I feel like it could have been more extreme. People keep comparing it to Silence of the Lambs. It's not quite as dark as a horror film I would be used to, but between the color palette, the direction, the performances, the story, the vibe, it's just got this weird, you catch more upon each subsequent viewing. The marketing was genius for this film, like just a tone and a mood that just drew me into this experience, put me in the shoes of this FBI agent. Once again, Nick Cage is just doing what he does best. Just Top 5, I'm not gonna lie, things started to get difficult around here. Here's a film that technically has been out for years, I'm not gonna lie. When it first was put out, it hit some film festivals in different countries and here and there, and critics might have picked it up, but I'm counting it as 2024 because we did not get official international release until 2024, and even then you probably did not get to see it. I'm lucky because I had my local art house cinema nearby. It is the hands down most hilarious film that I saw in 2024, and one of the funniest films I'd seen in a hot minute anyway. Hundreds of Beavers. Please, before you laugh, hear me out. There's a reason, if you trust me at all, if you know me at all, there's a reason this film is in my top 5. This is like OG slapstick Looney Tunes creativity to the extreme. I'm talking like I'm crying laughing. I was lightheaded, gut-bustingly funny, fun to watch, surprisingly dark in a couple moments here and there, but just a relatively simple story about a guy just trying to survive in the woods, but then has to go and try to encounter hundreds of beavers. And you watch the trailer, it might seem silly, ridiculous, stupid even, but if you've seen my review, you know how much I adored this film. I'm pretty sure I gave it like a 5 out of 5. I might have even given it higher. I don't think I had any notes for this. Just well-made, creative, most hilarious film I've seen all year, period. So it had to make it on the list. Number 5, Hundreds of Beavers.
May thy knife chip and shatter.
Next one, I'm pretty sure is in most people's top 3, if not number 1. I know one of the friends in my film watching group was like,
"Oh, it's this film. No question. No two ways about it. Nothing else beats it."
and I gotta admit, it is a damn near masterpiece, I gotta say. That is, of course, the cinematic achievement and blockbuster hit, absolute smash. Gotta see it in IMAX, iconic. The memes still aren't dying. Where is my Dune-see popcorn bucket? I'm talking about Dune Part 2, baby, which is funny because Dune Part 1, Part Uno, did, I believe, make my number 1 pick of 2022, I think. I know it was definitely in top 3 for sure. It was my favorite film of the year that year. I gotta admit, Dune Part 2, I ended up seeing it, I think, 4 times in theater, at least 3. It was one of the big events of the year. I adore, clearly, Blade Runner. I adore Denis Villeneuve's body of work. Visually, it is masterclass in filmmaking, the color palettes, of course the performances, Timothée being at his best and all that. You got old Elvis over here putting in the work and, got the 12-pack and went for a knife fight. It was so fun to watch. Though it may not have been my top favorite of the year, it just barely is on the outskirts. Like, top 3 is right here, Dune Part 2 is in there. It is definitely one of the best films I saw all year. Gotta ride the bandwagon on this one. It's a cinematic experience. I cannot recommend enough to check it out. Even though I've never read the books, the way that both Part 1 and Part 2 work, Part 2 being arguably better than Part 1 in a lot of ways. The lore, the characters, the world, the in-world items, it was all easy for me to pick up and to get involved in. And now I know so much more about Dune than I ever did without even having to have read the books.
Listen, I gave.
But now, of course, we approach the nitty-gritty of it all. We have finally gotten down to this is the top 3, the top 3, folks. As I was doing my list, they kept poking their heads into the top 10, but can't get them on there. But I do want to make sure they're mentioned because I love them all. And one reason or another, even if I haven't reviewed them all yet, they're worthy of your time. So, honorable mentions. Thank you for your patience. We've made it through my semi-cheating top 10, well, the first 7 anyway. Leaves only one thing. While we're MovieMan's top 3 films of the year, I think one's gonna surprise you because I haven't reviewed it yet. I think you know what's coming.
Life can only be understood backwards, but we have to leave it forwards.
Number 3, we have a film that luckily I was able to catch it, but again, only in my local art house cinema. I didn't even hear about this in production. I just saw it was coming out. When I saw what studio was making this film and saw what their previous filmography was, I knew I had to go see it. I referred to Memoir of a Snail. I had a feeling I was going to like it already. I do love when animated films tackle heavier thematic adult subject material and all that, and this is an R-rated claymation stop motion animated film. Does it do all that and then some? But this was just, it captured me because it just, of its creativity, it's the quality of animation. The studio's just getting better and better at what it does. Of course, Sarah Snook is like the voice acting, the narration, the emotion. She's a master at what she does. I love that actor for a reason. I love her character in Succession for a reason. And anytime that I see her name in anything, I'm immediately on board. Boy, did I laugh in this movie. One of the funniest films I've seen all year. I laughed. I definitely cried. It was quite an emotional journey that did not shy away from the dregs of what humanity has to offer, but also showing you the light. The yin and the yang. It shows you the darkness, it shows you the light. Our main character is a naturally melancholic person. It's a message still of, love, loss, but also ultimately hope by the end. And for me, I don't know if it's based off of a true story or not. Perhaps it is. It was a beautiful tale, a beautiful story, portrayed in such a wonderfully artistically creative, quirky way. If you like Amelie, you'll love Memoir of a Snail. Let me put it that way.
Dad used to say that childhood was like being drunk. Everyone remembers what you did, except you.
There's something in the water.
What do you mean there's something in the water?
I don't know, there's just something in the fucking water.
Number 2, I think, if you know me, you already know, this is probably one of the more biased picks I have on this list. I can't help it. Just because this franchise, as it were, I would say we've been eating good. We've been eating very well as of late, which is why that number 2 for me, personally, is Alien Romulus. I'm almost kind of surprised it didn't make number 1, but then I really thought about it and just, I don't know. I think quality of a film, I'm sure for a lot of people, it might not even grace their top 10, but for me, I'm a big fan of Fede Alvarez and his work. I'm a big fan of horror, the horror genre. Like I said, I'm a big fan of the franchise of Alien, and it's good to see that when you get the proper director and the proper circumstances with a solid cast, and you get back to what we know, is there still digital CG trickery here and there? Of course, you got to paint space somehow, but they used models where they could. The amount of work, time, and effort that went into creating the prosthetics and the environments, all the on-screen stuff, it's all physical, like props and sets and locations. I think the performances were great. The story, I love the story personally. I thought it was a great homage to the franchise as a whole. Kind of divisive amongst a lot of hardcore Alien fans and purists, as it were, but for me, seeing it the first night it came out in IMAX, I was entranced, I was sucked in, I loved the journey. Sequels confirmed. We got Alien Earth on Hulu coming up this year. What more can a guy ask for?
Get away from her. You bitch.
Have you ever dreamt of a better version of yourself?
And the number one, if you follow me on social media, if you caught my review of this film, then you may not be surprised. I'm pretty sure my number one favorites of each respective year, come to think of it, they're the weirder ones, the oddball ones, the visually striking, the stylized, the most creative, and the one film that I think stuck with me the most this year in terms of its messaging, in terms of its direction and cinematography, its color palettes, the surprising lack of dialogue from its main characters, the way it portrays certain aspects of the beauty industry and Hollywood and the glitz and glamour, but also the pitfalls that all come with it. I think you already know, but for me, my number one pick for the year was The Substance. I adore this film. I've seen it twice in theaters now. I plan on seeing it even more to keep spreading and showing the gospel. But as the movie was ending, it just kept on pushing the bar, pushing the envelope, which I love when films do this. Last year, my favorite was Poor Things. I think the year prior to it, it was Everything Everywhere All at Once. The movies that really stick with me, that I love, appreciate, and ultimately adore, and spread the gospel on, and making it into my number one on the list, is just the ones that aren't afraid to push the envelope and to be unique and stand out above the rest, and to give me something not only that like I haven't seen this last year, but something that I don't think I've ever quite seen before. But a film that takes clear inspiration from the greats, whether it's in horror or comedy that came before it, and with a solid message overall. Like I said, great performances. I'm just talking in circles now. Like I said, I have a full review for this one, but when I went over the whole list of all the films that I liked or loved, I gotta say, like, although it may only be a little, I had like one note for it, just one little note for the movie, but ultimately it's almost just about a perfect film in my eyes. I can't speak highly enough of it. You gotta be okay with a lot of things real quick. Not gonna lie, by the time the movie ends, I mean, if you're not okay with body horror, it's gonna turn you off. Unfortunately, for a lot of my friends that love the first 2/3 of this film, lost them in the last act. I get it, I understand, but for old Movie Man here, for what it's worth, I'd say The Substance is, in my opinion, the best film that came out of this last year.
But that's just me.
I'm fine. Everything's fine.
So yeah, once again to recap, number 10 was a three-way tie between Kim's Video, The Taste of Things, and Problemista. Then once I stopped being a cheater, we go 9 as Furiosa, a Mad Max Saga, 8 as Nosferatu, 7 Anora came in, 6 we got Long Legs, 5 we got Hundreds of Beavers, 4 we got Dune Part 2, 3 Memoir of a Snail, 2 Alien Romulus, and 1 The Substance. And the entertaining but category, where hey, you're still gonna have a good time with these films, but I admit that not a walk in the park. I admit I've been slacking on the movie review side of things ever since the reaction content has been taken off the way that it has. I plan on trying to catch up on movie reviews. I still want to do them for sure, and going into 2025 with my new studio space here, I'm in a better state of mind. I want to keep doing movie reviews. I might change up the format at some point, but rest assured, I still love doing this. I have not lost touch of the movie man inside my little movie heart, and if all goes well, I'll break my record again this year. We just got to see more than 214, so we'll see how that goes. Thank you for your patience as I try to get more movie reviews out. There's still plenty of content to come this year in general, a whole lot. Hopefully this video wasn't too long. Thank you so much for love and support. You can find me on the social medias, of course, Instagram, as well as if you want to support the channel more and get early access to my reaction content, then over on patreon.com/MovieMan101. And stay tuned for the next movie review that I do and the next top 10 when I eventually get it out. Hopefully the first of the year in 2026, but we'll see. So thank you guys and gals. Have a good day. Have a good night. And I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye, travelers.